All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's employment webinar series, Centers for Independent Living. My name is Melissa Edwards, and I am the Transition Project Manager for Project Power. Project Power is funded by the Rehabilitation Services Administration, which supports parent centers in Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, and Utah to build capacity for transitioning youth with disabilities and their families. To get the best experience, please keep your mics off until questions are opened. You will be muted for most of the presentation. Please use the chat to ask questions, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. If you prefer to ask your questions out loud during this time, please use the raise hand function in the reactions section at the bottom of the screen. 5 minutes before the end of the webinar, there will be a link to a survey for you to fill out. This webinar is being recorded. We will send the recording along with a summary and survey. We also have closed captioning available. Let's get started with Reggie from Diversability Incorporated.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I've worked in partnership with Melissa and Kathy on putting together the webinar series. So I want to introduce Kathy Gray-Mangerson from Raising Special Kids and also thank her for all the work she did preparing for the webinar series. And I'm with Diversability Incorporated. So we've had a series of 3 employment webinars for parent centers. So you can learn employment-related information and resources that you can share with your families and young adults that come to you asking about employment. We hope that you'll research specifics for your state. We've had guest speakers that are sharing some general information, but you may need to do a little research into your own state to find more specific information. And it's up to you if you'd like to create your own state-specific webinars to share with your parents and families. We've had 3. This is our 3rd and final for this series. So I know I see a few of you that have joined us for our session on vocational rehabilitation, another on pre-employment transition services, and of course today, Centers for Independent Living. All 3 of these resources are in all of the states that are represented by the parent training and information centers that are joining us for their region. So a little bit about Centers for Independent Living. The first center was created in 1972 in Berkeley, California by Ed Roberts. And anyone from the disability rights movement knows he's considered the father of the independent living movement. He contracted polio at the age of 14 and was paralyzed from the neck down. And he really fought for the rights of himself and other students at Berkeley to be able to be on campus and attend classes and participate fully by making things accessible. In 1978, the Rehabilitation Act amendments provided government support and funding for Centers for Independent Living in every state. So no matter which state you live in, there is at least one Center for Independent Living. Here in Arizona, we have 5. And our speaker today is from one of those Centers for Independent Living. CILs promote the independent living philosophy, which includes consumer control, peer support, self-help, equal access, advocacy, and self-determination. People who have disabilities are entitled to the same civil rights, options, and control over choices in their lives as people who do not have disabilities. That's also part of the independent living philosophy. Centers are governed and staffed by people who have disabilities. The majority of their staff and board members are people with all types of disabilities. Centers for Independent Living work to maximize leadership, empowerment, independence, and productivity for people who have disabilities. CILs also put the person first. They believe that all people can live with dignity, make their own choices, and participate fully in society. Their programs provide tools, resources, and supports for integrating people who have disabilities fully into their communities. They promote equal opportunities, self-determination, and respect. Some of the independent living principles include the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, funds over 403 centers for independent living another 330 branch offices, and 56 statewide independent living councils, you've heard them referred to as CILs, across the country. And so that funding helps people who have disabilities to live independently, exercise self-determination, make choices about their lives, contribute to society, pursue meaningful careers, and enjoy full inclusion in the economic, political, social, and educational mainstream of American society. There are 5 core services that CILs provide, and we'll hear more about that from April as well. But in a nutshell, the 5, one is information and referral, making sure that people who have disabilities are able to access and navigate resources and services in their communities. They provide independent living skills training. That could be mobility training, meal preparation, budgeting, stress management, computer skills, whatever types of skills that an individual needs to be able to live as independently as possible in their own community. And that's going to vary from person to person. Peer support is also at the core of Centers for Independent Living by providing mentoring and support from others who have disabilities. This is also ingrained in the makeup of Centers for Independent Living. The fact that the majority of their staff, all are people who have disabilities, they also act as role models and mentors to the people that are served by the Center for Independent Living. Advocacy, another huge cornerstone of Centers for Independent Living. They provide individual advocacy training, but also work to change things in the system. So individual and systems change advocacy happen through Centers for Independent Living. And the other service, the one that April will talk more about today, are transition services. So Centers for Independent Living provide transition in a number of different ways. This can be transition services from school to post-secondary education, jobs, careers, and adult life. So transition aimed at young adults. They also help people transition by moving out of non-community settings, such as nursing homes, back into home and community-based situations, maybe their own home, an apartment. And they also provide services to prevent people from being forced into non-community settings, such as nursing homes. So all of the transition services they provide cover a wide range of ages and services. As I mentioned, Arizona has 5 centers for independent living with main offices in Coconino, Maricopa, Pima, Yavapai, and Yuma counties. And you will be getting a copy of this PowerPoint, so you'll have this link. You can click on this link where the Administration for Community Living provides a list of all the centers by state. So if you click on that link, you're going to find all 5 centers for independent living in Arizona, centers for independent living in Colorado, Wyoming, wherever you happen to be. And to share a little bit more about Centers for Independent Living, I have the privilege of introducing April Reed. She's the Vice President of Advocacy at Ability 360, and that Center for Independent Living is based in Phoenix, though it does cover more than just one county. And April has been with Ability 360 for 19 years. So I'm excited for her to be here today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to April, who's going to share more specifically some of the employment-related services that Centers for Independent Living provide.
Thank you, Reggie. Hello, everyone. It's a privilege and an honor to be here with you this afternoon to share a little bit about the programs and services that Centers for Independent Living offer in relation to employment services. So the first program I'll talk about, I know you've already had exposure to through this series, but oftentimes you will see Centers for Independent Living that have the pre-employment transition or pre-ETS program. Now you'll remember that this program is funded by Vocational Rehabilitation or VR, and it's available for youth 14 to 22. They have to be enrolled in an educational program. Now that can be high school, that can be community college, that could be homeschool, but they do have to be enrolled in some sort of official educational program, and they do have to have a documented disability. But this program will work with any youth with disabilities. Now, pre-EDS programs were created really just to address a long-standing issue and concern in the disability community, which was often we had youth growing up with disabilities where no one ever spoke to them or talked to them about employment goals. Think about the old stereotypes, right, that have existed and that we've worked so hard to break through about what people with disabilities can do or what their employment opportunities are. And so often we would see youth reach adulthood. Nobody had ever talked to them about what do they want to do for a career? What do they want to study? What are their interests and their hobbies? What do they see after high school for themselves? And so pre-EDS really aims to address that. And most pre-EDS programs will have what we call the 5 workshops. So those are introduction or instruction on self-advocacy. So that's your basic self-advocacy, self-determination, communication, goal-setting skills, understanding my civil rights as a person with a disability, understanding disability history. Then the second workshop is workplace readiness, which I really think about this as independent living skills for work. How do I coordinate my schedule? How do I make sure that I set the alarm to get up on time for my job? What are those independent living skills that I need to have to be successful in the workplace? Communication with my coworkers. How do I dress appropriately for a work environment? The third workshop is counseling on post-secondary education. So this really walks the youth through all their career opportunities, what they can study, whether they're going to a community college, a university, or a trade school. What are my educational opportunities based on what I'm interested in? And then job exploration, counseling, and work-based learning, getting that resume writing, those interview skills, that volunteer experience. So a pre-EDS program, again, will often be at a Center for Independent Living. And no matter what center you go to, you should see a very similar structure for the pre-EDS program. You may also find what's called an employment network or an EN at a Center for Independent Living. If you're not familiar, ENs were created through the Ticket to Work legislation. So they are a program created and funded by Social Security, and the Social Security Administration oversees these programs nationwide. A great website if you want to learn more about the Ticket to Work program, or ENs, is choosework.ssa.gov. Now, you must be on Social Security, so in order to qualify for these services. So you have to be on SSI or SSDI, but the services are going to be those preparation services to help you get ready for employment. So resume writing, interview skills, support assistance with the job search. And then in addition to that, many employment networks will also provide benefits counseling. And that's counseling services provided through what we call a community work incentives partner. That's somebody who's trained by Social Security to counsel and provide planning services for someone to understand how work will impact their Social Security benefits. Now, this program will often work with people who are returning to work after an injury or after an illness, but they often will specialize in working with veterans. Maybe they will specialize in a certain type of career or job. For example, I've known employment networks that specialized in work from home opportunities for their consumers. As you can imagine, during the pandemic, lots of work from home opportunities were generated and became available. And certainly for people with disabilities, that can be an ideal work opportunity. So what I always encourage consumers, people interested in employment networks, find out the employment networks in your area. Go to the website, Choose Work. You'll see a list. You can do that search by state, and you'll find what employment networks are in your community, you'll also get a little information about what they specialize in, what services they offer, because each employment network can be a little bit different. So I really encourage you to screen them, to call them and interview them, make sure that they have the type of opportunities and searching databases that fit the type of work that you are interested in and the skills that you have. And then also at Centers for Independent Living, we're going to have what's called independent living skills specialists. Sometimes you'll see them called coordinators or even sometimes independent living advocates. I think of these as kind of like case management coordinators, right? There's somebody that you're going to sit down with and work one-on-one to create your goal plan or your independent living plan. And so if you're interested in connecting with an independent living skills specialist, every center is going to have an independent living skills specialist. It's part of our core services. So you can just call the main number of that center. You can speak to the information referral coordinator, or you can just ask about independent living skills instruction services, and they're going to connect you with those staff. What I really love about this service, you'll be familiar with some of the other case management type programs out there in the community. Often they are time limited and very specific services that they provide. At Centers for Independent Living, what I love, our services there are not time limited, and we can work on almost any independent living skill that someone can identify is going to support them in their goals. So not only employment, but everything from learning computers, public transportation skills, communication skills, organizational skills. Again, almost anything someone can identify as a goal, that's when they say, this will help me be more independent and productive in my life. We can work with them on that. We work with it, again, anyone with a disability. And what you'll do is complete a simple intake. Now, every Center for Independent Living, the intake is going to be a little bit different, but it'll be a basic intake, which will ask you, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve during your work with the independent living skills staff? And so they'll begin that process of helping map out what's the goals that that individual has. Is it finding employment and a specific career? Is it finding resources or working with the staff to develop their resume? Maybe they want to role play and practice their interview skills. So everything will be documented in that intake, and they're going to make a time frame and set action steps for each of those goals. So the individual and the staff will have a really very clear plan about the work that they will do together and how they'll spend their time working step by step to help that individual reach their employment goals. So services, again, could include maybe communication, organizational, socialization skills, some of those soft skills that will help you prepare for work. It might be resume writing, interview skills, or actual supports looking for that job. Maybe that person has questions about job accommodations, and so they're working on understanding their own disability. Often we work with people that it might just be a few years since their accident or their injury. And so they're coming back to look for work and really are learning themselves again, even for our youth, right? This is the first opportunity maybe for them to explore who are they in a work environment. And youth often will have questions about, how do I talk about my disability? How do I explain my disability? When or should I explain my disability? And so we're going to give very specific support in helping them understand their disability, their accommodation needs, but also understanding their rights as an employee with a disability. We're also going to connect them with resources like the Job Accommodation Network, JAN, the Pacific ADA Center. We'll connect them with trainings and webinars to help them further understand their rights as a person with a disability. So again, any of those services that will help them prepare for that job search. I want to show you a short video with one of the youth that we've worked with here at Ability 360. And I think this just gives you a great example of what Centers for Independent Living will be doing with your students and youth that you work with. I'm sorry, I don't think we're able to hear that.
No sound.
It's working on my end. You can't hear it?
No.
Okay, I don't know what to tell you. It's working fine. I've got the volume all the way up.
Sometimes you have to share the volume before you present your screen.
And they also
Oh, now I hear it.
Oh, now I hear it. Yes.
Oh, okay, let's go back.
Thank you, Kathy.
hello,
Do you hear it
everybody. My name
now?
is Roberto Barrios. I graduated from high school.
Yes.
And I have been with Bridge 360 for a year. I have been a part of lots of programs at Bridge 360. I'm learning how to like self-advocate for myself, speaking up for myself, how to like cook different meals, how to socialize with people, how to have healthy relationships, and how to be more independent in the community. And they also offer a lot of dance group and arts and crafts as well.
Hi, I'm Ashley Diarte. I'm the Community Living Options Coordinator here with Ability 360. So Norberto has learned and made friends. He has become a great helper in class as well, always offering to help others. You know, oh, I know where this is at, or I can help you with this, or I can walk you to the Sports and Fitness Center. I've been there before, and very open and just very kind, and was once in their shoes, so sees that. And Norberto's ultimate goal is actually to become a teacher for special education for younger children. He's also been working with the Independent Living Skills program, which is with me, where he's able to learn about budgeting, employment, which is how he was able to find out about vocational rehabilitation services, so that he can gain more experience with working in a classroom.
With my life, my dream goal is to be a teacher and to be living on my own, to be more independent, and maybe one day have a family, have kids, have a wife. What I feel it changed for me being a part with a business, it helped me to grow up. I evolved so much as a human being. I have grown as a adult. I'm so happy that I have ever been because I get to talk with people. And it changed me for the good because I have been there with family. I have my mom clean the house. I will tell the high school students that they should join Adventure Cities because they have a lot of opportunities and a lot of like activities and resources to offer. And thank you, Adventure Cities. You're like my family.
So oftentimes Centers for Independent Living will have
Hello,
recreation
everybody. My name is
programs.
Roberto Barrios. I graduated from high
No,
school.
trying to
and
get to
I
the
have
next
been-
slide. Give me a second here.
No, thank you, Kathy. Thank you. So Centers for Independent Living will often have recreation programs. The socialization and recreation will be a part of their independent living services. And we know that for a lot of our youth, that's a really important piece of the preparation for employment is practicing those social skills, but also having that sense of community, being around other people with disabilities. Reggie mentioned peer support as a core service. Oftentimes being in a group or Norberto mentioned the men's group, coming to a men's group or coming to a cooking class, you're getting that peer support, that encouragement from others with disabilities. And so I love that video shows him in some of those classes. The cooking class, the recreation classes, again, are really important to help building that confidence. And often those are kind of the first steps of what we work on with someone is that recreation social skills in their job goals. That can be a real important foundational piece. Another recreation or family activity that you'll often see at Centers for Independent Living through either their youth services program or maybe a recreation program will be programming for families and youth. And so here at Ability 360, we do that through our 360 Youth program. Once a month, we hold activities in partnership with our Sports and Fitness Center, and it's for the entire family. And so it's for that youth 14 to 22, but it's also for their siblings and for their parents. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. You all know how important it is for us to address the fears and the concerns and the worries of the family when they're thinking about what's next for my young adult after high school. What employment opportunities does my loved one have for the future? And what we find is if we can get the family here with our staff at an event, they relax, they get peer support, connecting with other families. They also get that sense of community, being here, knowing a little bit more about the supports and services. So often you'll see Centers for Independent Living having those type of events for the families, for the parents, educational workshops for the parents, so that we're addressing some of the fears so that they feel prepared to support the youth or their loved one in that employment and that job search. And so think about those programs as well as you're exploring the center. A lot of those programs will exist at Centers for Independent Living and can be incredibly supportive in that employment journey and that employment goal preparation. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Reggie.
Thank you so much, April. A lot of great information, and I love the video, and thank you for sharing all of this. We're going to take questions now, and what we'll do is if you have a question, let's start with one question, and once everyone's had a chance to ask, then if you have a second question, we'll come back. But you can ask in the chat, or you can use the raise your hand function, or just unmute and ask if we don't see anyone else with a hand up. I actually wouldn't mind starting with the question, April. So when the Parent Training and Information Centers, a family comes to them with a young adult and says, you know, I'm worried about my young adult working because we're worried they're going to lose all of their benefits. What would be the response that the PTIs could give and how to navigate through that?
Well, I would really encourage you to talk with the families about the WIPA program. So the WIPA program is a national program. Oftentimes you'll see that at Centers for Independent Living, but just as often you'll see that in the community. There's some WIPA programs that are at universities. There are some that are at community centers. So if you need help identifying where your WIPA program is, even if it's not at a Center for Independent Living, they will be able to help you find that program. WIPA stands for Work Incentives Planning Assistance. And Reggie, I think you're putting that into the chat for me. Thank you. So WIPA programs are created, again, through that Ticket to Work legislation from Social Security. And the staff are trained by Social Security. They don't even work with a consumer or family until they have completed almost 1 year of training. So the training that they receive to provide benefits counseling is very intense and does a great job of preparing the counselors to walk the family, walk the beneficiary, as they call them, the person receiving SSI, through how work will impact their benefits and what work incentives Social Security has that will allow you to work and protect your benefits. So for youth, there are a ton of work incentives oftentimes families aren't aware of. For example, many states have what's called a Medicaid buy-in program. And if you're not familiar, I have to strongly encourage you to check out whether your state has one. Many states do. In Arizona, we have a Medicaid buy-in program that's called Access Freedom to Work. This is for your youth to have health insurance so they can work and not worry about losing their health insurance, their Medicaid coverage. So the youth can start working. In Arizona, they can make up to $72,000 a year. And many of the benefits buy-in programs across the nation have very generous earnings qualifications. So the youth can make a living wage and not worry about losing their Medicaid coverage. So if you have a young adult that starts working and they're ready to transition off their SSI benefits, but they have that Medicaid health insurance, they will just go back to the Medicaid program and apply specifically for the Medicaid buy-in program. They will pay a premium. On average, the premiums range from about $20 to $30 a month. And again, that's getting the same Medicaid coverage they've always had, and they don't lose that. And they can make up to, again, the income requirements are going to be different, but in Arizona, $72,000 a year, and keep their Medicaid coverage. So you can imagine what a big relief that is to the parents to know that this safety net program exists, that my youth doesn't have to lose their health insurance. They can just simply transition to the Medicaid buy-in program. So that's just one example of the many, many work incentives that the benefits counselors are going to tell the youth and the family about. I have to also encourage you too, that we don't want to see youth working on SSI without talking to a benefits counselor, because you want the youth and the family to understand how many hours they can work, how their benefits are going to be impacted, and what they need to report to Social Security. So I know our benefits counselors here at Ability 360 will often tell me if there was one thing that they wished families knew and youth knew, is come talk to us early. Come talk to us when you're thinking about what am I going to do for work, or you've got a job in mind, or you've got a job offer. Don't wait. Get to them sooner rather than later. They're going to prepare the youth and the family for that income and how you report to Social Security. Often families think, oh, it's just a few hours a week. It doesn't make a difference to Social Security. You always want to be in a position where you have reported to Social Security those earnings. So the benefits program, the WIPA program, is free, and they have a priority of working with youth and families. So even if their program has a wait list, they will accept youth because that is a priority category for Social Security. Also, you should know they don't report to Social Security even though they're funded by Social Security. So if you and your young adult come and talk to the program, and maybe you change your minds about working, or maybe you are reporting that you're making more hours, they're not reporting to Social Security. You are in charge of doing that. Their job is to counsel you and make sure that you understand simply how work is going to affect benefits, and make sure that you know all about the work incentives. There's even work incentives that will help the youth pay for schooling. And Social Security will allow you to have some income set aside, or not count income that's going for schooling, for educational programming. So these work incentive counselors, these benefits counselors, as they're sometimes called, are really essential for us as providers to know about, but for the families to know about, just as a great resource to have in your tool belt as that young adult starts to prepare for work.
Thank you, April. We had a question in the chat. How do the services work if it's a young adult who is not on SSI and does not have a Social Security number? Are there still ways a CIL can serve that young adult?
Yeah. So even though like a Center for Independent Living might be like us and have a couple of programs that are specifically funded by Social Security, so that program does require you to be on SSI or have Social Security benefits, for the center as a whole, for you to get all those core services we talked about, you do not have to be on Social Security benefits. You just have to be a person with a disability. And what I also love about Centers for Independent Living is that we're not required for you to bring medical documentation. Oftentimes people with disabilities and our families, we're used to have to drag that medical file around and prove that we have a disability. All you simply have to tell us is what the disability is and how it impacts you and what are your goals, and you qualify for services at a Center for Independent Living. So for all those core services we mentioned, that's the qualification. Very simple intake. Most services won't have a waiting list because we're not having to go through that verification process and that financial verification process. It's very simple to qualify for the services and the core services at Centers for Independent Living.
Thank you. And in case I'm not seeing some raised hands, if there's anyone else with a question, you could unmute at this point. I don't see any other questions in chat. Going once.